Welcome to rePROs Fight Back, a podcast where we explore all things reproductive health, rights, and justice. I'm your host, Jenny Wetter, and I'll be helping you stay informed around issues like birth control, abortion, sex education, and LGBTQ issues, and much, much more. Giving you the tools you need to take action and fight back. Okay, let's dive in. Hi, rePROs. How's everybody doing? I'm your host, Jenny Wetter, and my pronouns are she, her. So, y'all, it is a gorgeous fall day in DC right now. We have a nice blue sky, and when I'm recording this, we haven't had one for a while, so it is very exciting to see. And I think I've mentioned this before, but my condo, I'm on the top floor of like one of the last tall buildings in my area, so I have just this gorgeous, huge view of Washington, D.C., and I can see all of these trees that are in the middle of changing colors. It's just like this delightful fall day. I'm sitting here this morning, drinking some tea, recording my intro. It's just like a lovely morning, and it's making me very happy. I guess before we get started, let's do just a little bit of housekeeping. One, now that we have expanded rePROs beyond just the podcast, our social media is even more active. We're not just sharing episodes, but we're sharing a lot of other things. So if you aren't already, you should definitely be following us on social media. And you can find us on Facebook and Twitter at rePROs Fight Back and on Instagram at rePROs FB. And Rachel, who helps me and does like producing on this show, but she is also our public policy manager for rePROs Fight Back, is just killing it on social. So it would make her very happy if you are to give us a follow on any and all of your favorite platforms. And same, if you like the podcast, it would be wonderful if you could rate and review us on your favorite podcast platform. It helps other people find it, and it helps us know that you like the show. So it would make me really happy, and Rachel too, if you were to give us 5 stars and write a quick review about why you love the podcast. I guess one other housekeeping related thing is, and you can't hear it too bad right now, but it is fall, which means it is allergy season for me. So I have a little bit of a frog in my throat this morning as I am trying to record. However, my allergies were much worse when I recorded this interview, so I sound not great. So sorry, y'all. You're gonna have to bear with my voice a little bit in the episode. I'm feeling a lot better now, but I sound not great during the interview. So sorry about the audio challenges, but it's just that time of year for me. Let's see here. Oh, really important. If you are listening to this episode when it comes out, we are 1 week away from the midterm elections. Make sure to get out and vote. It is really important. It's always really important, but make sure you're voting up and down the ballot. Abortion, reproductive related decisions are made on many different levels, all the way down to school board, deciding what kind of sex ed gets taught in schools. It's really important to make your voice heard and, show why you care about these issues and why reproductive rights, abortion, sex ed, all of it is so important to you. So voting is a chance you get to show officials that you care. So make sure that you are voting. I am getting ready to cast my ballot. I have a mail-in ballot. It is sitting there on my table waiting for me to fill it out and drop in the mail this week. But make sure y'all get out and vote next Tuesday. And let's shout really loud about why abortion is important. Okay, with that, let's turn to this week's interview. Y'all, I am just so excited. This has been an interview topic that has been percolating in the back of my head for a very long time. I have been wanting to talk about why language is so important for a long while. So I was really excited to snag Kelsey Rhodes at Physicians for Reproductive Health to talk all about language and imagery and why it's so important that we are using accurate language when we are in the midst of this fight and using representative imagery. It's all important. And yeah, I was so excited to have this conversation. So let's just turn to it. Here is my interview with Kelsey. Hi, Kelsey. Thank you so much for being here.
Hi, Jenny. Thanks for having me.
So I guess before we get started, I'll deal with the elephant in the room of I sound like I'm dying. My seasonal allergies really flared up over the weekend, and yeah, it's all in my throat right now. So sorry that I sound a little terrible, y'all.
Just in time for spooky season.
Exactly. So do you want to maybe take a quick second and introduce yourself and include your pronouns?
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Kelsey Rhodes. I use she, her pronouns, and I lead the communications work at Physicians for Reproductive Health. So PRH, we organize, mobilize, and amplify the voices of medical providers to advance sexual and reproductive health, rights, and justice. So we do a lot of education, advocacy, and some strategic communications work to ensure access to abortion care and equitable comprehensive health care.
They're really great, y'all. I love dealing with them and dealing with Kelsey to get me physicians to come on the podcast. They're really a wonderful voice. And you guys have this great new guide for, I mean, it's not that new anymore, but like this wonderful guide for reporters about language and things. And I've been really wanting to do an episode for a long time, like addressing like language and why we talk about things in a certain way and why it matters. And I kept like putting it off because like something more important like would always come up. And I was like, man, it's now been almost 5 years. Like I just need to bite the bullet and make it happen. And this was like the perfect opportunity.
Well, I'm really glad to be here to talk about it. It was a really fun project. It really is central to the way that we do our work. When we use language to talk about abortion, it's really giving us an opportunity to share not only facts, but also the values that bring us to the work. So I'm really glad that you're doing an episode on it.
Okay. So I think you already addressed a little bit. I thought maybe we would start with like why you created the guide and then we can get all into the language.
Yeah, sure. So at PRH, we originally created this guide actually in late 2019. So it was in the midst of the Trump administration as they were slinging around a lot of harmful rhetoric about abortion, specifically a lot of just lies about abortion later in pregnancy. And language shifts all the time, right? And so because of that, we at PRH realized that as we were entering a lot more state bans on abortion, specifically right around Texas's SB 8 going into effect last year, we too needed to shift the way that we were presenting how we were talking about abortion. And so we updated the guide in fall of last year, and that's when we released it. And it ended up being a really helpful tool for a lot of folks, not only reporters, which was the original audience we were trying to reach, but also we ended up kind of iterating it to be for policymakers as well, and then one for the general public, because we do all have an opportunity to talk about abortion from an informed and compassionate place.
Yeah, it's definitely something I've shared. I've shared with people I've heard like in public or on podcasts talking about abortion, or shared with colleagues to make sure that when in our writing and talking that we are using the best language. So it's been just a wonderful resource.
Well, thanks for being a fan.
Always. Okay, so maybe we'll start with one that people who've listened to the podcast know I've used for a very long time, but I feel like there's, again, this like furor that pops up whenever we try to talk about it, and that's not using gender exclusive language.
Ooh, I love starting with this one.
Right?
So gender inclusivity is really important in any area of healthcare that we talk about, but specifically reproductive healthcare. Reproductive healthcare and abortion care has become just unnecessarily gendered. And what I mean by that is that we end up always using almost woman language, woman terms, she, her, lots of talk about moms, lots of talk about ladies, women. And a lot of those people do have abortions, do get pregnant, do access full spectrum reproductive health care, but they're not every person that accesses that kind of care. And so we at PRH, and I think everyone in our movement, is really adamant about being inclusive about everyone who needs abortion care. And that will always include trans folks and non-binary folks. If we only use like feminine language and we only use gendered language and talk about women and use she, her pronouns in everything we do, we're actually intentionally erasing quite a large group of folks who need access to the care that we all care a lot about. So that was the driver there. And then I have the privilege of working with so many abortion providers who also provide gender-affirming care. These fights for trans folks and also for abortion access are one and the same. And so we will always be really intentional about including trans and gender non-binary folks in our conversations and in our work.
Yeah, and I think it's just like really important as a group that puts out papers and does research that like being very clear like about being gender inclusive, but like sometimes the data you have isn't. And so when you use that data, you have to use women, but then always making sure to like flag that like this is why we are using women in this instance.
I'm glad you brought that up. Yeah, because if we think about like the 1 in 4 stat that we always talk about, 1 in 4 women will have an abortion, but that's actually missing a lot of folks who have also had abortions who don't identify as a woman.
Yeah, so I think it's sometimes hard when you're like looking through things you're reading, like going back and forth, but like there's really an important reason we're doing that because we want to be inclusive, but you also have to represent the data correctly.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, you know, I wonder a lot when I see a lot of the conversation and the rhetoric on social media. People get so mad when we use the term pregnant person or pregnant people. And I don't get it, right? Like that's factually accurate.
Yes.
You are a pregnant person. And I don't know why they always want us to say moms, birthing mother, all of these other terms that end up excluding a large group of people.
For sure. Okay. So I think the next one that really bothers me, and I'm so glad y'all took it on, was dealing with heartbeat bans.
Oh, geez. Here's a good one.
Like, it's so annoying because that is how they get reported everywhere and how they get talked about. And like every once in a while, because you hear it so much, like it comes out of your mouth and you're like, that is not what I want to be talking about. And yeah.
Yeah, this one gets repeated really frequently, not only by anti-abortion legislators, but also by journalists who are covering anti-abortion legislation that's getting introduced. And this was an invention by the anti-abortion movement. The phrase heartbeat bill was completely made up by folks who were really intentional of wanting to create some kind of like visceral emotional response. I'm really privileged to work with physicians every day who take care of folks at all different stages of their pregnancy, whether they want to be pregnant or not, and help them get abortion care. And what we know is actually driven by science and evidence is that the sound that folks might hear if they're forced to listen to their ultrasound over the course of their abortion care is actually cardiac activity, like electrocardiac activity from the cells that one day could become a heart. We know they might not, right? Like fetal development is really unpredictable. And so that's the sound that people are hearing. And that sound ended up becoming almost the soundtrack of the anti-abortion movement, right? They wanted to have that be something that signified quote unquote life instead of what it really is, which is just some fuzzy radio electrical sound.
Right? Like they want that like emotional, like, I mean, they use it for so many things. You know, we can talk about like, you know, later term abortion bans and like things like that, where they try to use that language to like cloudy the issue and try to get an emotional response instead of a like factual data response.
You know, it's just as interesting to me that this language was derived by folks who are the ultimate hypocrites when it comes to language. This is a side that likes to identify as being pro-life, and even that is a lie. I think that if we think about what we all would consider being pro-life, that would be valuing the life, the goals, the dreams, the desires, the identities of people, of pregnant people, and respecting whether or not they want to be pregnant or not. You know, people who are pregnant are the ultimate experts in their own life. And anyone who thinks otherwise, anyone who thinks that they can know more about someone's life than the actual person who's living it, I mean, that just shows themselves. They are all about control, right? They're all about coercion. And those are the roots of the white supremacy movement, is how can we control and coerce other people's bodies and lives?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the root of it, right? Like it all comes down to wanting to control people's bodies. And I think you saw this conversation coming up around, not to get political, I mean, political, but like around the Herschel Walker abortion story. And people were like, that's not a contradiction, right? It was about him having the control over who could have an abortion, which is no different than than these abortion bans. So they're not so contradictory as you might feel.
Yeah, that's absolutely true.
Okay, let's see here. I think another one that I think is really important to be talking about right now, and as you see people out protesting and stuff, is imagery, or even things that do get covered and used in reporting. And so one of those things is the coat hanger imagery and like why that is so problematic.
Yeah. So we've seen the coat hanger, like you said, on a lot of protest signs. We've seen those pictures of protest signs then included in a lot of reporting about the moment that we're in right now for abortion access. So I don't know. I'm assuming your audiences that are listening are pretty familiar with the root of the coat hanger, but I will just start from the beginning in case they aren't. But the coat hanger image refers to a time back in the 50s, 60s, 70s of the 1900s, let me be clear, that people who were pregnant and didn't want to be pregnant would turn to some dangerous and scary methods to end their own pregnancy because they didn't have access to safe abortion care. And so the coat hanger was thought of as some image of this is what women, and I'll use that phrase intentionally, would turn to end their own pregnancies. This was pre-1973, pre-legalization of mifepristone, pre the understanding and advancement of a lot of procedural abortion care that we have today. And so, unfortunately, if we use the coat hanger now, we're not accurately reflecting the time in history that we're in now. Thank goodness for science, right? Thank goodness for the invention of these different medications and different procedures that now give folks access to different methods to end their pregnancies that are known to be incredibly safe. Like they have enviable safety records compared to many other medical procedures. And so it's just actually painting a very false image of what abortion care and specifically self-managed abortion care looks like today. Folks who are self-managing their abortions today are doing so very safely because they have a lot more information, resources, and support available to them than they did before Roe. What that looks like today oftentimes is medication abortion. So accessing the pills that are used for medication abortion, which is mifepristone and misoprostol, and taking those pills in the comfort of their own home or with their family or friends and ending their pregnancy that way. So the real threat now when it comes to self-managed abortion is no longer physical harm, but instead this legal and criminal threat.
That's so important. It's so important to point out, we don't need to be scaring people about what the reality of self-managed abortion is now. And you're right. Like the real threat is having to worry about criminalization, which, that's still really scary, and it is going to disproportionately impact marginalized communities.
Absolutely.
But that's a huge difference from earlier times when abortion was banned, that you can be able to access self-managed abortion that is going to be safe.
Yeah. It reminds me of the headline that we see now that's still rooted in so much shame and stigma, which is quote, women will die, right? Again, that's rooted in this narrative of way back when. We're in such a different moment. And if we see people's lives being harmed or lost, it'll be because of this maternal mortality crisis that we're facing and that people are going to be forced to remain pregnant against their will. That does a lot of harm to someone's life.
And I guess my only flag, since this podcast does talk global and domestic, that this is definitely a domestic focused conversation. And right, the realities of illegal abortion in other countries is different than what we're talking about here.
Thanks for
just to draw that distinction, that is not the conversation we're having at the moment.
Yeah, thank you. No, I really appreciate you bringing that up because I only work with folks who are providing abortion care here in the United States. And I know that we're facing a different set of challenges than folks around the world.
Okay. So, and I think that links to, so we talked about the coat hanger, but you also see, I think we all have done a great job of stamping it out, but you still see it pop up on Twitter and people talking about it, about back alley abortions. You see that coming up as well. It's basically the same conversation we just had, but similar.
Yeah, I know. And back alley abortions, again, actually brings in that there are these sneaky, behind the scenes, detective abortion providers. Back alley abortion somehow insinuates that there are folks providing care in a really unsafe way, under the radar, practicing outside the law. The folks that I work with and that I'm really proud to work with, they're devastated that they can't offer abortion care at this time in certain states. All they want to do is take care of their communities. All they want to do is show up for their communities. And if they were to act outside of the confines of the law, they could actually be putting a target on their back to lose their license, to perhaps get arrested. And all that would do is prevent them from being able to keep performing the other health services that they provide. They're still able to give, other full spectrum comprehensive health care, contraceptive care, birth care, pregnancy management. And they're really putting their careers, their lives, their families, and their communities at risk if they were to work outside of the legal confines of what's going on in their community.
And that care becomes, I don't want to say more important because I don't know that that's quite the right way to say that, but is just as important to ensure that people are able to access in a state where abortion is banned, to have somewhere where they can reliably go to get contraceptive care, to get all of that other sexual and reproductive health care they need is really important. And some of those clinics right now are struggling. So it's really, if you are able, we always talk about the importance of donating to abortion funds, but there's another great one called Keep Our Clinics Open, which donates to clinics to make sure that clinics can keep their doors open.
Yeah, I love Keep Our Clinics because it's supporting indie abortion clinics, the independent abortion clinics. Shout out to our friends at Abortion Care Network. We love them. We know that most abortions actually do happen in independent clinics. That's who's serving the most folks in our communities. And so I agree. Support them as much as you can. They are continuing to provide really essential healthcare, even if they can't provide abortion care right now. And we don't want to lose any more of them than we already have.
Okay, so I guess that brings me to the next imagery that has been all over the place. I know I can already see Kelsey man, I have to have this conversation again. Handmaid's Tale.
Yep. I was waiting for you to exhale that word. Yes. So Handmaid's Tale is a narrative that's been around for a while. We had the book. Now we have the TV show. There are still new episodes coming out just this week.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. There's more Handmaids all the time. What we have when we're looking at Handmaid's Tale is a fictional narrative that has, yes, told a story of attack on bodily autonomy and about controlling people's lives. But what they've kind of missed out in this narrative is the way that our systems of oppression in this country really do inequitably impact Black, brown, queer, trans folks. And that narrative is not played out in Handmaid's Tale. We see a lot of heroes that are white women. We see mostly white women characters that are portrayed in the show. And again, it's a fictional world that we're not living in. And to equate what real folks are going through in this country right now, people in homes across the country, to something that's like a scripted television show that a turfy white woman wrote is just very problematic.
Yeah. Nope. I think that sums up, that is all we need to say about it.
So leave your costumes at home, y'all. No more red capes.
Yes. The other thing y'all can leave is Underground Railroad references to trying to get people access to abortion out of states.
Yeah, there's just no need to co-opt the work of other movements. Equating the struggle to end slavery to the moment that we're in right now, again, is just drawing false parallels. We are devastated by what's happening with this abortion access crisis today, but that's not at all the same fight that Black folks led to liberate themselves in this country. Just stop. Just stop.
Just stop. Yeah. I feel like those are the big imagery ones. Are there any other image related things that I'm missing? Those are the ones I thought of kind of just off the top of my head.
No, I think that's it.
I think another thing that is really important, and we kind of touched on this with the other things, is kind of the anti-science between the anti-choice side and then their frame being regurgitated as truth and letting them get away with that. So I think one of the big things that was happening, I feel a couple of years ago, was abortion reversal.
Oh, geez. Yeah.
And seeing that just get covered as it is a thing.
Yeah. So it's not a thing. So-called abortion reversal is a really dangerous intervention into folks' experiences. There was a very, this anti-abortion researcher who was trying to see if they could stop the process of a medication abortion midway through. There was a study that tried to duplicate this man's work, and through trying to duplicate it, it actually put a lot of people in danger. And so when it comes to this so-called abortion reversal, I really think that they were trying to prey off of people who were going to get an abortion and who were carrying the weight of all of the shame and stigma that anti-abortion folks put out in the world that make people think that they should perhaps regret their abortion, that they might feel guilty about their abortion. However you feel about your abortion is the right way to feel for you, and you should not take on any blame, shame, fault from anyone else. And I do think that they were trying to prey off of folks who were feeling shitty. Yeah, no, but I think that abortion reversal was an invention to try and make people feel worse about the choices that they were making for their life. And it's dangerous. It's dangerous. I live in Kansas City, Missouri. I live right on the border of Missouri and Kansas. And when I am on the Missouri side, I see horrific billboards that are put up. And I have to say they're gross. It's like pictures of 6-month-old babies that they somehow have given full sets of teeth,
What? No.
which just developmentally is not real. So these 6-month-old babies are smiling down on me.
And everybody should know that, right? People have seen babies.
I mean, it would be scary if infants had that many teeth. But okay, this fully formed, smiling baby looking down on me from the billboard on the freeway. And it's like, save me. You don't have to go through with this. Reverse your abortion now. The money and resources and time that's spent trying to make people second guess what they know about their lives and their families is just embarrassing.
It makes me think of a couple things. I went to undergrad at the University of Wisconsin at Madison. And there were the family that came every Friday or whatever to Library Mall that had the giant signs with the dismembered fetus that were
I'm familiar, yeah.
we've all seen. So it makes me think of that, again, from Wisconsin. So similar kind of vibes. I think that I haven't seen billboards in Wisconsin, but I could just not be in the right areas when I'm home because I am not that far from Madison. So maybe not the right areas for it. Yeah. And I had something else and it was gone. So, oh yeah. When we did the episode where we had 2 episodes where we testify storytellers come on and tell their abortion stories, and that external shame that got put on people was this key thread through all of the stories was the people didn't necessarily have those feelings for themselves, but they could feel all the external from either the protesters or just in the atmosphere that was impacting how they were processing their abortions, which just is tragic.
Oh, it makes me so sad. Hearing you say that and thinking about all the folks that I know who also have been impacted by these pressures that are on all of us to just be a certain way, look a certain way, have our lives play out a certain way, meet the quote, American dream, and what a perfect family is supposed to look like. All of that is defined entirely by white supremacy and capitalism. And so if we see white supremacy's part in that situation, right? Someone feeling shame and guilt for acting on their behalf and what was best for them. White supremacy teaches us that we can't have self-interest, right? That we have to be acting in the interest of people who are in power. And that makes us feel smaller. It makes us second guess our own self-worth, our own ability to build the life that we dream of. So what I love about working in this movement work and being in community with so many folks who realize that there's another way is that we actually are already on this path, right, to building the communities that we need. We have what we need already. We have the tools we need. We have the community we need. We have the power and energy that we need. And it's just a little slower, right? The urgency that capitalism teaches us, the productivity that capitalism teaches us is that we have to go to work and grind and make a something.
Exactly.
A widget. And the fact that we right now are working on something a little bit more tangible, right? A little bit less tangible, creating safety, creating care, within our communities, that's actually a disrupting force to the white supremacy that this country is built on.
I feel like that's like a really solid, like, wrapping up. But I don't want to stop if there are other like language things that we haven't talked about yet. There are so many things that are, the bottom line is language matters, and like how people hear about abortion or hear the story told can influence the way that they are thinking and feeling about it. So it's really important to get it right.
I think that's right. Listen to people who have had abortions. Listen to people who provide abortions. Really do some solid listening. Slow down and learn about the words that you're using. Learn about the words that you're repeating and publishing. And I think we all have the ability to shift the way that we talk about abortion in a direction that's more compassionate, more inclusive, and really just more based on the facts.
Okay, so we always end with like, what can our audience do? But I kind of feel like we talked about language and like this was all like what the audience can do. But I definitely want to give you the opportunity if you have anything else.
You already did such an awesome call to action. I love that call to donate to indies, to indie clinics in your communities, donate to the abortion funds in your communities, and listen and pay storytellers for the work that they're doing.
And also, PRH has some pretty amazing merch. So, like, make sure you can get some PRH t-shirts. I think there's, like, I love my abortion provider or love abortion providers or something like that.
And we have some new ones dropping soon, just in time for the holidays.
Things I don't need to hear, but will then definitely go by.
We're all abortion fashionistas.
Exactly. Well, Kelsey, thank you so much for being here. I really enjoyed talking to you.
Thank you, Jenny. Thank you so much for having me.
Okay, y'all. I hope you enjoyed my conversation with Kelsey. It was so wonderful to get to talk about language. It's something that is, I know, can be a little bit nerdy, but it's really important because it impacts how people see our issues, right? So if they're only hearing from the pro-life movement and not hearing that, no, they're anti-bodily autonomy, they're anti-abortion. We can't let them set the narrative on this. We need to make sure that we are being loud and clear, and something I feel like we've talked about on the podcast before, but unafraid to say the word abortion, right? We don't need to be, I'm pro-choice. You can be loud and proud. I am pro-abortion. And your reason for having an abortion is the right reason because it is your reason. And I don't need to know it. It's not my business. It's just, language is so important. It makes a huge difference to validate people's experiences, to make sure we are being reflective of the science, reflective of the reality that people are experiencing. It's all just so important, and that we are being as inclusive as possible. So I'm just so grateful to have Kelsey on to talk all about language and imagery in the repro movement. With that, as usual, if you have questions or a topic you would like us to cover, please feel free to shoot me an email. I'm at Jenny, JENNIE, at reprosfightback.com. Or, as always, you can reach out to us on social media. We're at Repros Fight Back on Facebook and Twitter, or Repros FB on Instagram. And we will see y'all in 2 weeks. For more information, including show notes from this episode and previous episodes, please visit us at our website at reprosfightback.com. You can also find us on Facebook and Twitter at Repros Fight Back, and on Instagram at Repros FB. If you like our show, please help others find it by sharing it with your friends, and please rate and review us on Apple Podcasts. Thanks for listening.